combining Universal and Disney World in one vacation. This is Go Inform Podcast, episode 64. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is episode 64, and today we are talking about combining Universal Orlando and Disney World in one amazing vacation. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this, and welcome to the show. My name's Maven. I'm your hostess over here. I am the founder, blogger, podcaster, all those things over at goinform.net. And almost always when I go to Orlando, I see both Universal and Disney in the same trip. So this is something that I think is really a great idea when you visit Orlando. And so I'm happy to be able to tell you a little bit more about how I do it. And I'm here to give you guys some tips to help you plan how to make this work for you on your next trip to Orlando. Show notes for today's episode will be at goinform.net/64. And that is actually a post that I wrote a while back about adding Universal Orlando to a Disney World vacation. It's always been really popular one on the website. And I don't know why I haven't talked to you about this sooner. So let's dive in and talk about what it looks like to do both in the same vacation. I really do think that if you're taking the time and money and energy to visit Orlando, that it really does make sense to spend a little time at both Universal and at Disney World. I know that you may be someone who thinks like only one of these places is the one you want to see. I know I was like that. Actually, you guys, when I first visited Orlando for the first time, it was to see the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. My daughter and I stayed at Disney World because we figured we were going all the way to Orlando. We need to see Disney World too. But I really had no idea how amazing Disney World was going to be. I knew Harry Potter was going to be cool. I did not realize like half the stuff I was going to see at Universal or at Disney World. And it really opened my eyes. So, it does make a ton of sense to explore both, especially if this is your first time in Orlando or if it's been a long time since you've been there. So there's a few different ways that you can make this work when you're going to combine, both of these locations. One thing to keep in mind is they are both in the Orlando area. Universal is about half an hour drive from Disney World, just kind of depending on traffic. I think it's something like only 15 miles away. So these are relatively close to each other, but, definitely it's something that you need to plan for. It's not quite as easy as just running down the street to the next theme park. So there's a few ways that people do both. And a lot of it just depends on where you have decided to stay for your vacation. And, we just spent some time talking about the Disney World hotels. And if you go back to episode 56, you'll hear my tips for the Universal Orlando hotels. And so you might be thinking about, where you want to stay. So I'm hoping that I'm catching you before you've even made those hotel reservations, because I want you to really consider, if you want to see both things, how much time do you want to spend in each place? And how do you want to, split up your stay? Now, in terms of where to stay in Orlando, there's really three options when we're talking about combining these two locations. So one of them is just stay somewhere in Orlando that's not even at Disney or Universal. Maybe you're in an offsite condo or something like that. Another option is to just stay in the Disney bubble and stay at Disney World your entire trip. and then just go visit Universal from there. And another option is to stay only at Universal and visit Disney World from there. So I think I said there were 3 options, but I guess there's probably 4, because the last option would be to split your stay between Disney World and Universal. And so that is actually where I want to focus the most on today. But I do want to circle back and talk about what if you aren't staying at Universal and you want to visit there from staying somewhere else. You really can see a lot at Universal Orlando in one day. I am planning to do an episode just about that, like a 1-day strategic strike visit to Universal. But just to give you guys some quick tips about that, you can do it. If you're staying at Disney World, you can get up early, grab an Uber or drive over to Universal and be there in time for park opening. Even in morning traffic, allow yourself some time. But you can get up in the morning from your Disney World hotel and be at Universal before the park opens. So this is something, that's possible. And I've done it before, and it can make for a long day because you're probably going to want to spend the entire day at Universal. You want to get the most out of your ticket and your time. So you don't get to take breaks to the hotels or anything like that when you're not staying there. But you can get into the parks early and, see a lot of stuff in one day. If you visit Universal during your vacation this way, just for one day, you can do it anytime during the vacation. So, if you're staying at Disney World for a week, maybe you put Universal in the middle of your trip as kind of a way to break up, what you're doing at Disney. I don't really have any particular recommendation about which day in your trip to take that one day if you're just doing that kind of single day visit. But I do recommend that unless you're going at a really low crowd time, you might want to consider getting express passes for your group if you're only going to see Universal in one day, especially if you want to see more than just a couple of things. Universal's express passes are a really valuable tool in touring there. It gives you kind of a skip the line access to almost every attraction at Universal. It's kind of like if you know about Disney's Fast Passes, it's like that without having to pre-schedule a time to get into the attraction. And I have a whole episode about Express Pass, so you guys can scroll back in the archives and find it. But Express Pass can really help you maximize your touring when you're only going to be there for a day. Here's the thing about Express Pass. Universal charges money for these. They are not free. They're usually at least $100 a person. That's on top of your park ticket. So keep that in mind when you're considering, how are you going to maximize your touring if you're just going to visit for the day? Why would you only visit for one day? Personally, and I'm sure you guys have already heard me say this, I think Universal Orlando is a multi-day kind of experience. There is just a ton of stuff to see. And if you really want to, take it in and feel like you've explored everything and had the chance to kind of circle back and see things more than once, then I personally think that it's best to spend more than one day there. And if you're going to spend more than one day at Universal, then it really makes sense to stay on site for at least part of your trip. When combining Disney World and Universal Orlando, really my rule of thumb is that if I'm going to spend more than one day in the parks in either of the places, then I'm going to stay at that location for at least one night. That way I can wake up and go to the parks and I can take a break during the day and I don't have to be running back and forth. I mean, you do have the transportation issues. If you're staying at Disney World and you're going to go to Universal more than once, then you're kind of running back and forth between these locations across town. there's so many benefits to staying on site that I really think it makes sense both for the time you're at Disney World to stay on site there and the time you're at Universal Orlando to stay on site there. And I think I might have been the exception where I went to Orlando that first time intending to see Universal as kind of my main thing, even though we really did just give ourselves a day. It was crazy. And so I think a lot of people actually, when they head to Orlando, they're heading for Disney World and they're adding Universal as kind of a secondary thing. So, if this is you, here's how I recommend that you split up your trip between Disney World and Universal. I do recommend that you give yourself at least 2 days at Universal. There's just so much to see there. It will make your trip more relaxed too, because you won't have to cram it all into one day. And, you can spend one night at Universal and that covers 2 days in the parks. A few things to keep in mind, and again, I dove way more deeply into this in the hotels episode, but there's a lot of perks to staying on site at Universal, and they can really help you with your touring. So first of all, doesn't matter which hotel you stay in over there, you're going to get an hour early admission every single day into the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And that's a nice head start over the people who are just coming in for the day, staying off site. So right there, you're giving yourself a real advantage. Some of the hotels at Universal actually give free unlimited express passes to all the guests in the hotel. So if you're thinking you want to use Express Pass and you start doing the math, you may find that it's actually a better deal for you to go spend just one night at Universal Orlando to get the Express Pass. And you're going to get that Express Pass and that early admission for every single day of your stay, which is, your check-in day and your check-out day. So one of the things that I really recommend is if you're going to add Universal into your Disney World vacation, put it at the end of your vacation. And the reason for this is that let's just assume you decide you want to spend 2 days at Universal and you want to stay in an Express Pass hotel. Those are more expensive. They're probably going to be comparable to the pricing of a deluxe hotel over at Disney. Now, if you're staying in one of those hotels at Disney, then it's kind of a wash as far as your cost. But if you're staying in Disney at a less expensive hotel, then you can stay every night of your trip, except for that last night at that less expensive price, and then just splurge on your last night. Just go ahead and move over to Universal, check into that hotel, that Express Pass hotel, get up early in the morning that day, go over to Universal before the park opens, drop off your luggage. They'll let you do kind of a pre-check-in. They will hand you your room key that has your Express Pass included, and you can go to the park before it opens and have early admission and an Express Pass for that first morning, the day of your check-in. So you spent the night at Disney World for less money than your Express Pass hotel. And then you just get up early, check out of there, go over to Universal, drop off your stuff, get your Express Pass, and get in line. And you have the whole entire day to spend at Universal. And then, go back to your hotel and hang out at the pool in the afternoon, take a nap, whatever. But you've got a whole day with all of those perks without having spent the night before in that hotel. Then you just stay the one night there and then go to the park the next day. Let's just assume you're flying out that late that day. You would still have almost a whole day at Universal Orlando that day. And again, you would have Express Pass and early admission. This is how we do it almost every single time. It works really well if you have a later flight. especially, and adding the that Express Pass hotel at the end of your vacation is just a really good way to like make the most out of staying 1 or 2 nights there rather than having even more nights at that expense. The other thing to keep in mind with multiple days at either Disney World or Universal is that the park tickets, the incremental cost of adding another day onto your park ticket, even if it's just going from 1 to 2 days in the parks, it's usually not that much compared to the price of a 1-day ticket. 1-day tickets are always going to be kind of the worst value for your money because they charge a full price for those 1-day tickets. And then if you buy a 2-day ticket, it is not twice the price. And if you get out to 3, 4, 5 days at these parks, the incremental increase to add those days is not that much. So there's a lot of reasons why visiting Universal for multiple days, it just makes a lot of sense. And again, gives you a chance to really explore and enjoy it. Besides the benefits of if you choose to stay in an Express Pass hotel, you could also just stay in any of the Universal hotels just to give you that convenience of being able to get the early admission to go to the parks and also to have the easy transportation so you don't have to add in your travel time from somewhere else. And, being on site, it just kind of puts you in the bubble over there. No matter what you decide to do, I really do encourage you to consider combining both Disney World and Universal. There is just so much to see in Orlando, and especially now when many of us, it's been a long time since we've had the chance to plan a big vacation like this. I think that you want to make the most out of it. So definitely give that some consideration and think about how you would add your 2 destinations in one altogether. I'm sure I have left out a bunch of stuff that you guys have questions about. So please reach out to me with your questions. I would love to do a listener questions episode here coming up. So, let me know if you have questions. You can reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, just send me a message. You can find me over there at GoInformNet, or you can leave a comment in the show notes. And the show notes are over at goinform.net/64. Thanks you guys for listening today. I hope you're having fun starting to envision your vacation, and I hope you get to travel again soon. Thanks for listening.